Welcome back to Resilience Unplugged, the podcast where we unpack the future of cybersecurity, AI, and the people shaping it across Africa and beyond. I'm Simon Perry from Resilience, where our mission is simple: global tech, African talent. Today we're joined by someone who lives the mission every day, Jeron, the talent man. He's built cyber teams across SA, the Middle East, the US, APAC, and even inside some of the world's most innovative ecosystems, like Israeli startups and Team A. If you're trying to find cyber skills, trying to break into the field, or want to understand how African talent fits into the global market, this one's for you. Jeron, welcome to Resilience Unplugged.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you for having me.
You started looking after some of the US and the APAC markets. I guess, how's that journey shaped your view of cybersecurity talents across all these regions?
Yeah, it's very different from region to region. So going back to my story, and obviously where I met you, I started in cybersecurity over a decade ago in recruitment, mostly working for telcos and banks, because that was back then what I learned took cybersecurity seriously, like out of all the organizations, and then working for the end users and helping them build out like what they called security operations centers. Some people called them defense centers. There was all different names. Then started working with the resellers, and that's obviously how I met, guys from the disties and the VARs and all the rest. And then slowly but surely, it was like a backtrack, finding out who you guys were selling and what products. And I was very interested in the products and I worked with the vendors. Yeah, look, how's it shaped my view on the cyber talent? I think it's different from region to region, depending on where you go. As I normally say, there's great ones and also bad eggs in every single region that you approach. As a recruiter, the biggest thing for us is to back channel or reference. Like, I know that you hear it all the time, but clients always say, like, can I get reference checking? Can you please do reference? Some clients do it themselves. But the amount of people that actually don't do that is quite scary. And I think that's one thing that I learned, is to do back channeling. So it's not just the references that are given, it's people that you know from your network to reach out to and say, oh, do you know Simon? Do you know Tony? Do you know Jeron? Like, who do you know? And can you vouch for them? Because if people vouch, that's probably the strongest thing. But one thing I learned, and this is maybe off topic, but one thing I learned about the talent back then, I was very naive and I didn't really understand the difference between direct and indirect and channels versus sales and titles. One thing I have learned is that it's very misleading from region to region. And I'll explain. Like in South Africa, I think they've done a pretty good job with distinguishing a salesperson direct is a direct salesperson, a channel person is a channel person, a sales engineer is a sales engineer. Sometimes they can kind of split and say solutions architect. You go to America, very confusing, because an individual contributor sales rep is called an account executive. It can be called a regional sales manager. It can be called a regional sales director. There's so many titles for one thing. And then you go to the likes of APAC, let's go Singapore, and you go speak to a regional sales director who's actually a sales rep and a channel person in one. So I don't know. It's you kind of have to learn the markets and what they're doing in each, but every region's different. And that's one thing I learned from my journey, is that it's not one and the same.
A couple of things that sort of bring to point is, specifically South Africa, the market is quite small.
Yeah.
Sort of everyone knows everyone in this region. And also then, being, myself working for an American vendor a few years ago, every time I went to these, I guess, sales conferences or kickoffs in the States, you land up meeting, I guess, colleagues who sit in the US region.
Yeah.
And they tend to be specialist in one domain, where
Oh, yeah.
South Africans are generally generalists across multiple domains.
We don't have the luxury.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's quite funny to see, because a lot of the guys are always like, yeah, but we're a specialist. But then you ask them about these other domains and how it interconnects, and they're like, no, it's not my responsibility. And you're like, okay, well, that's very strange.
Yeah. It's a pro and con for South Africa, actually. I think and you would have seen it, obviously, you're in the space, but it's a massive opportunity purely because there is a lack of talent, number one,
Okay.
but also there's a big driving force for a lot of these vendors that I work with recently to go into the emerging, I call it emerging markets, right? And South Africa is actually a very big market that a lot of people don't realize how much there is to unveil. right?
Yeah.
When they go Africa, it's sometimes like South Africa, a little bit of East and West. But as a whole, Africa itself is massive. And that's why you'll find that not too many vendors are actually based that side. They will have disties or value-added resellers selling out, their products. That's a good opportunity though. Um, and it's both sides. Obviously where I step in is I try and help them find people on the ground to at least have one or two people. Because I always find that having a person, call it a specialist or someone that's actually selling that product on the ground is always beneficial for the vendor. Um, at the end of the day, as we know, a reseller or a distie has multiple products. So you
Yeah.
kind of want to make sure that they're selling your product correctly. So yeah, it's a massive opportunity. I suppose the con is we just don't have enough talent.
You're recruiting across, those multiple time zones. What trends are you seeing, from a hiring demand versus supply? I mean, are there certain roles in certain regions that are bigger? I know when you were based in the Middle East, I know there's a number of large cybersecurity vendors that are based there, and they're always looking for, these massive roles.
Yeah.
Can you maybe touch on that?
Yeah, yeah. I can go through the whole because obviously we do global, but even though I say global, most of our work is US and Middle East. We're doing more in Europe now. I'm actually doing a little bit more in APAC. But if we're going to go split it up, the biggest for us in our organization is sales engineering. And funny enough, if I go backwards to the other agencies that I worked with before I started my own, it was sales engineering was a big part. Yes, obviously sales is also very big, but in terms of supply versus demand, the tricky one was sales engineering. And I don't even know if it's because it's that hard to find. I think it's more so it's hard to understand.
Yeah.
For an internal talent acquisition person to understand that, I take my hat off. My sister's in the TA space. So I know what she deals with, and a lot of people think that they just do recruitment. They do so much more: assessment, planning, strategy, onboarding. There's so much that a TA does. So when they come to a specialist agency, I think that's where the benefit of someone who's been doing this for over a decade can ask the right questions to understand what a sales engineer does. So sales engineer for me is one of the top things that keep coming up. If you're talking about supply versus demand, you will have some people out there selling themselves as sales engineers, but they could be kind of more leaning towards a TAM type of role, or, actually they're a salesperson. They're not that technical. So yeah, it's really hard to really pinpoint that one. But if you're going through region to region, besides sales engineering, we're talking about regions that are constantly looking and constantly moving. USA, and the reason why it's so big is because the notice periods, they are 2 weeks. Whereas you
Mm.
go from other regions, South Africa typically 30 days or calendar month. Same thing in Middle East. In Europe, a bit of a mixed bag, normally 30 days. France and Germany, 3 months. Sometimes in a senior hire, it's 6 months, which does kind of limit both sides. Yeah. So USA constant in terms of quick turnaround, 2 week people leave. So there's a big demand for people because they're moving all the time. I don't really feel that there's the demand versus supply. It's more demand because people are shifting the whole time. The other things that we noticing, like especially in US and Europe, and I'll cover this probably during the course of this call, we help a lot of companies with first person and second person and third person on the ground roles. So typically the companies that come to us say, oh, we want to start in America, we want to start in Europe, we want to start in Middle East. So we'll find the first person will always be an individual contributor, but a player coach, salesperson. Call it a VP, call it a regional sales director, doesn't really matter on the title. That would be first prize. Second would be, depending on which way they want to model it, sometimes they don't want to go channel route and they want to go direct only, which I advise against. But, there will be a direct seller, an SC, and maybe a professional services person or customer success person. But typically the three would be direct person, channel person, SC. That's kind of what we generally start off with. So USA, always going to be big. And then EU wise, the DACH region, like talking
Yeah.
about the regions that generally struggle, the DACH region would always come up first prize. UK is following them, and that's purely because people are leaving UK. Go backwards, like the tax breaks and everything else that's been happening there, increases. I think it's what did they just? It was released recently, man. I can't remember if it was the inflation or something else on the housing, property and stuff. But a lot of people are just saying like we're going to leave UK, and a lot of them are going to Middle East.
Oh,
But
wow.
yeah, tons. If you actually go, I think the UAE 85% of it's expat, right? That's just the way it's always been. But if you look at the expats, it used to be very much more leaning towards a lot of South Asian people that live there. But then if you're looking at European wise, I don't think it was UK was the highest, but UK is becoming the highest right now. If not, I think it's taking over South Africans that are that side. There's a lot of South Africans.
Yeah, I've got a couple mates who in the tech side, and they're based in the UK, and they all like, 10 years ago it was great being there, and now they are all looking at relocating somewhere, and even thinking of coming back to South Africa, which is, there was a reason
It's
they left.
the reason you left. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's crazy. Like I find that if you're looking at region to region, and let's go backwards to the DACH region, why it's so hot. Because I always say to all clients, like, who you working with in DACH? What do you have there right now? Skills wise, it's limited,
Yeah,
but it's more about the speaking languages. So I suppose that's why I would favor that over UK, because UK is kind of English, right? You can find people from all around and bring them over. There's very limited, especially in Germany and France. So those are the ones with the long notice periods. And the reason it makes sense, they make these long notice periods because they're trying to retain their staff, because they're like, shit, we have so little supply. We got good people. And then the good people, I think what I find is the speaking languages. So they need to speak fluent, native. You can't have this, you got the A level, B level, C level. If they don't have C level, don't even bother. But it's the relationship versus transactional in a lot of the different spaces. I would say USA, and going to have a lot of my American clientele and probably my American candidates give me shit about this, but it's very transactional. It can be like, a one night stand. Go in, sell, be friends. I'm going to solve your need. You have money, you have the buying ability. Here's the product's going to solve your thing. Take it and leave. Germany and France, vastly different. If not, Singapore's also very the same. It's all about relationships. They
yeah,
couldn't care less. Yes, they obviously want to know the product works, it adds value, and it solves an issue. But they're going to be basing it off the relationship they have with you, Simon. So if you've got a very good relationship, and like I've met some candidates that have worked with a client throughout all the different vendors they worked with. So like their client would be Oracle, SAP, or DHL, or Bosch, and they literally get hired to each one and they still manage that account, if that makes sense. So it's all about relationships.
yeah, yeah. Just, I mean, on that, I mean, so like you're looking at all the regions itself.
Yeah.
I guess there's a massive skill shortage. I think I saw a stat recently. It's like 4.8 million globally
Cheapest.
open positions in cybersecurity, which I find a bit strange. But
Yeah.
I guess what are some of the regions getting right? I guess building and attracting talent.
Mhm.
And what do you think South Africa can do to to learn from that?
I've helped quite a few in the past. I won't mention names, but South African companies when I was still there. And I think in general, and this doesn't just relate to South Africa, but in general, I think a lot of people get the hiring process completely wrong. And you need some outsider advice. And sometimes they don't really like the recruiter to be telling them this just purely because they think the recruiter's after the commission or at the placement. But realistically, what everyone can do right, and this is not just specifically to South Africa, but I'll give you some examples, is speeding up the process and understanding that your process of hiring should only take 2 weeks. It should never be longer than 2 weeks. They've made a stat, so you can actually just type into ChatGPT or Google these days. What is the average hiring turnaround time or time to hire? And I think they said it's about between 30 to 40. um, I mark this and actually manage this with my clients, and I see some of my clients are doing 68 days from submission to hire, right?
Yeah,
Doesn't sound long, but when you have a 5 stage process and obviously the CEO's out or the VP is not available, they're going on holiday, all these things add up. You don't really see it as a very long process because to you it's normal. But one thing that your competitors, I always say that, your competitors, but the competition is doing better than others, is they streamlining their process and they're making sure that they, from start to finish, get an offer out within 2 weeks, because it doesn't have to be that you have the best product, the best leadership, the best everything. If your process is better and you can get an offer out to someone who is looking, they are not going to risk it for the biscuit, as we say in South Africa. They are going to take what's on the table. And if it's good and the offer's right and they're in the market, they're going to take that. They're not going to wait and go, well, let me pray to the powers that be that I'm going to get an offer. It's speculative. So that's the first thing I'd always like to mention is the turnaround time has to be a lot better. 2 weeks is the go-to. Um, Other things to do, getting it right or building the talent.
Maybe retaining staff. How do companies, I mean, which companies are doing it right in specifically retaining their staff? I mean, how do people stay with these businesses? Because I know, looking specifically in my market, you got a 50-50 split where got guys who are staying with companies, 1-2 years, and then you got other guys who are staying
Yeah,
4 years and plus. I mean, how does that
it's
work?
it's such a tricky one, right? Because I get it. Like every company wants to retain. At the end of the day, it's an investment, right? And I treat it that way, and that's why I tell my clients to treat it that way. At the end of the day, it is your employees, it's your staff, it's your people, right? It's your culture. That's what I call
Mm,
culture. It's your people. So if you want to have a good culture, you need to look after your people. So any company that ever you go into Glassdoor and you have these review things and have a shitty culture, or they say like a blah, 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 and they have very bad turnaround, it's down to a few things. Leadership, sometimes, unfortunately, what I've found, and I can't mention names, but certain companies that I've worked with, the leadership that they've hired is personal friends,
yeah.
could be, founders that stay leaders. And there's a few times that that shouldn't be the case, or once a company gets to a certain stage, like hire people that can actually drive and push the needle a little bit further. But things that I normally tell my clients on attraction or retention. So let's start with attraction first, and we'll talk about retention. How do you attract people to come to your company? I don't know if you've seen it of late, but there's more and more thought leaders or more and more VPs and CEOs that are very active on LinkedIn and posting content, and if not becoming viral. I follow quite
Mm,
a few, mostly CEOs and founders, some sales engagement platforms that I've been following because I'm interested in them. But I think the social selling part is such a big thing. And if you start selling yourself and showcasing, when I say selling yourself, I don't mean lying and saying, oh, I'm the best, I'm the best, I'm the best. Meanwhile, you're the worst. But showcasing, like, hey, this is what I did for this person, showcasing what you've helped others in your organization achieve automatically attracts people to go, well, I would want to work for Simon.
mm,
So something that I push out is I have taken quite a few underperforming recruiters and got them to a level of success, or they've left me and started their own firm and started very successfully. Some people that work for me actually have started their own recruitment agency and surpassed me, which is amazing. So that's the first thing is social selling is such a big thing for attraction, and companies don't do it enough. I've mentioned this. I actually did. I think I've told you on a previous chat, but I've done like a stand-up talk at a conference, and that is one thing. You need to be doing social selling. You need to be selling yourself. You need to be selling your business. It should be all on LinkedIn, and it needs to not be these cringe sitting still videos. It needs to be
yeah.
walking around, talking, be human. People buy human, right? They want authenticity. I think that's the word that I was trying to find. With the retention part, it is a lot harder. How do you keep someone intrigued and interested? I think the biggest thing is just feeling heard.
Mm,
It sounds so small, such a small thing, but it really isn't. So a lot of the times, companies will put out these surveys, a survey where you sit there, and I've been part of it, so I know how terrible it is. And you just click, 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 and no one really cares. And then they
yeah.
get the
Good,
thing and
good,
it goes,
good, bad, good.
yeah, yeah, it goes to HR or something. And that maybe it works for some. I don't think it works at all. I think, where it really comes into people feeling appreciated and that they're heard is having ones-on-ones weekly, sitting down with a team in a group setting or in an individual setting and saying, hey guys, like, how do you think we can improve? How can we innovate? There's no bad idea. And everyone should be able to express and say, hey, I think this would be a good idea. And then sometimes there might be a great idea where say, let's implement that. And even if it's not your idea, but you're sitting in that room as an individual and you're hearing one of your co-colleagues has an idea that's taken to fruition, you automatically assume, maybe I'm going to come up with the next idea. That's one thing. So you feel like you're part of, I don't know, the bigger purpose, the bigger goal,
Yeah,
rather than I'm just a number, I'm getting paid a salary. It's just a job. That's one way. Learning and development should be on the tip of everyone's tongue in an organization. The and it's I'm going to I hope you don't mind. I'm going to pivot to recruitment now. A few years ago, when I used to speak to people and I say, "What's the reasons for you leaving?" And I'm talking about good 10 years ago. The answer was always the same: money.
Yeah.
No one was shy to talk about it. Everyone just go money, money, and it wasn't really a thing of like, oh, you greedy. Now people are scared to say I'm moving for money because people go, oh, oh no, you're a money hungry person. You're a jumper. You're going to be with us for a year or two and then bugger off. Um, it changed over the years. A couple of years ago, it used to be progression. That's what
Mm.
we always get told. Progression, progression. So between that and now of late, it's culture, weirdly enough, which is
Yeah.
people. Between progression and people, so if you can get your culture correctly and almost without telling your people, because this is another bane of my existence, Simon, I will say this, is people in the company get forced, don't know if you've ever heard this, but get forced to post and comment on their stuff on LinkedIn. You can almost see it's like a dreaded thing. Someone posts something, they're like, great, such an amazing team. Like, and it's only that team that's doing it, no outsiders. It doesn't really sell it. But I think if they post their own authentic self and people start posting in the team and like, hey, I did this today at this company. Oh, I did this today. People notice that and people see it and
Mm.
automatically, organically, the attraction happens. They're like, that looks really cool. They look like they're having fun. I want to be part of that. So back to the attraction and wrapping in my recruitment side there.
I think just on that, sorry, I just want to
Yeah.
jump in. I mean, just on the culture side of things, and I had a conversation with probably with a leader of a quite a relatively sized organization, and they were asking the question, how do they create culture? And I said, it's not from the top down. It's the team itself need to create the culture. And I think that's the biggest problem is when, yeah, you touched on it, is when, you're being, spoon fed how culture should look. It's not going to work. It needs to be created by everyone within that organization. So, yeah,
Yeah, I think it's a hard part. Like people ask every single day. Yeah, I speak to 5, 6 professionals in the cyber world every single day, and they all ask when I'm pitching a client, "What's the culture like? How is the culture?" And it's such a hard thing to explain. You like unless
yeah,
I've been in the organization, or obviously I do visit some of my clients, and that's the reason you go visit the client is to go see and you feel it. It's not a thing that you can write down. It's also not something that you put on the walls because a lot of companies put their values on the walls, like these
yeah,
words. It doesn't mean anything. It really is the people. And the people, they create their own culture. So now I'm going to pivot back to your retention parts, the L&D side. If you have something in motion in your business where you sit down and constantly talking about progression, constantly upskilling, evolving, even if someone's at the top of their game, right now, I wouldn't say I'm the top of my game, but I've been doing this for long enough, 13 years, that I host a training session, not just with my team, but with outsiders. And I ask them to do some training as well and do some input because I still learn. And just from the training sessions that we do in my team, it's not just training from my side, it's from outsiders too. I can tell you, I believe, cross fingers, maybe my team will tell you differently. We have a very good culture, very transparent, very open. They can do their own thing, obviously, if it doesn't tarnish the brand, but enjoy themselves, be themselves. The way I say it is you running your own business within a business, you're
mm,
creating your own brand. So I would say the same to any organization is tell the people, yes, you work for XYZ, big name, small name, but you your own brand and create a really cool brand because we'll touch on that in a bit. Social selling is like the new gold. If you can socially sell yourself, it's just so much
yeah.
better these days with LinkedIn and everything else.
I like it. I think maybe just taking a look at, who you work with and who you deal with. And I mean, I know that you and I on the last call spoke about, you know, the Israeli vendors and
Yeah, tons.
some of the cool tech that comes out of there. Teammate, I mean,
Big one. Yeah.
maybe touch on that. I mean, specifically, what are they doing? Why are they so successful? And you know, what's coming out of there that they're doing different?
They workaholics. Yeah, look, I met with teammates and I flew over to Israel over a decade ago and a shout out to they're no longer, well, they're part of entity, but Dimension Data, it's a company that I worked with back in the day. And they actually introduced me to them. And I flew over to Israel and met with the guys that side. It was quite mind blowing to see what they actually do. So it's kind of a VC. I call them an incubator. I don't want to obviously say the wrong terminology, what they would like to call themselves. But what's
Yeah,
quite unique about them was big building, 8 stories, 10 stories. Can't remember exactly how many floors, but they were like a company that invested in startups or ideas. So me and you, Simon, we can come up with, I don't know, I normally use a city thing like Baby Deadpool. Baby Deadpool is going to be our cool new product. And we obviously pitch these guys. It's going to be a product that sits in your office and it protects everything from browser to endpoint, everything, right? It's like crazy, never heard of before. And they go, cool, we'll give you some money, go create your product. Generally give you seed money, an office branding, might not be an office bigger than where I'm sitting right now. So it's nothing fancy, but you're part of that group. You're backed by them. They obviously have loads of connections, loads of other VCs connected and CISOs they're connected. So there are lots of referrals that happen, but the support they give is something that I find one of the biggest differentiators to the other VCs or partners or PE companies that I've seen out there. It's not just money and advice. It's actually on the ground staff as well. So they'll have engineers at the disposal, support people at the disposal to help you build out your product. So me and you probably don't know how to build out a product. They got people that do. But let's
Yeah.
go backwards. How are they world class and how are they scaling correctly? So I've worked with these guys for many, many years, and I've got American vendors, I've got European vendors. Why I favor them, I suppose there's a term in Hebrew. I've learned it, so I'll say it dughri, but it means like say it how it is. We in South Africa would say call a spade a spade. They're very forward and forthcoming and very open about it. So I like that about them. That doesn't make them world class. What does make them world class is education, and something that I think around the world is lacking. I've talked about this in South Africa as well. And I know that even, I think I don't know if UP or UJ started creating a cybersecurity course. I don't know if you heard about that one.
So I think actually University of Pretoria.
I think it's UP. Yeah, yeah. There was a cyber course, and that only came out about 6 years ago, plus
Yeah.
minus. So it hasn't been around for long, but I was always mentioning that, like, why isn't there a subdivision? Like, yes, you have CompTIA and you have Security Plus, and you have all these other certifications that go through certain, separate, it's not really in a university, but separate places that offer these things. But in Israel, the guys that go do military service, I know that's not really something that happens too much now in South Africa where it's compulsory, but in Israel it's compulsory. They go into military service and there's a intelligence unit called 8200. And that is where they learn cybersecurity. So be it they sit into a security operations center or they start learning a little bit about products and pre-sales. That's kind of the biggest thing. Just that little small thing, and it's not really a small thing, it's a big one. But it boils down to education. So these guys get educated up on it and they're trained up on it from a very young and early age. Besides that, they extremely fast-paced. They move fast. They move with intent. They know how to adopt or match. So what I mean by that is, they look at the market, they see where the gap is, let's come up with that, or they match, they find something else. Maybe it's a competitor in America, and they're like, what's that product doing well? Let's take it, but better it. And then they take it to the market. And I think also the other thing that they're very big on, and this is making them world class, is their hiring processes. They are very quick. There are some companies that I work with that aren't the 2 weeks, by the way, but I think they take time to hire the right person. It's not about the skill set or filling a bum on a seat. What I've learned that they do very correctly is they will assess, is this person a cultural fit, which is really hard to do because we just talked about culture. When you're just meeting someone like me and you, we know each other for a few years. But if I just met you, how the hell do you know if I'm going to be the right culture fit? Unless I
Yeah.
speak the same language, or maybe we have similar connections. Like I told you about my signed Brian Abana hat up there. And you're like, he's my best guy. Maybe that's a common connection. But for them, they really do believe in hiring people that understand their mission
Mm.
and the ethos about the business and what they're trying to achieve. So it's not a job. It's like, I hate to use it because we always hate the phrase that say, you're part of the family. But they kind of do need people that are part of the family that will support and they'll go to war with him, blood, sweat, and tears, you
Mm.
know? So that's something that they do very right compared to the rest that I've found is like they really dive down deep to make sure this person is the person that's going to come, not just for the sake of a job, but for the long haul, the end result. We either looking for merger, acquisition, or IPO. And that's what they're aiming for.
I think on that, I mean, they're doing it well, but you got some organizations, saying they can't find the right people. They sometimes say that, are they looking for that unicorn, but it doesn't exist? What are you seeing
Yeah,
in that?
look, there's a few things that most clients always say to us when we speak to them. The one would be well, we ask, when do you need this person by? And it's a running joke in recruitment. They always say yesterday. So, if you ever speak to someone, you ever say that, you just know that recruiters internally chuckling because we hear it so many times. But yeah, you get a lot of clients that say, look, we just can't find the people, just can't find them. Where are they? And it happens in South Africa a lot. It actually happens in Middle East a lot too. I would say it depends on client to client, but some clients are fussy. Some clients do not understand, and I'm going to use competitor analysis or market analysis of what's actually happening in the market. So maybe they haven't hired this person for a very long time, or they haven't had the seat open. So, for example, I'll use an analogy or a story that we just had. So a company will come to us and say, look, we're looking for a solutions architect. We've had the solutions architect working for us for 8 years. We would like to replace. So it's essentially a free seat. We want to get another bum on the seat, which I obviously don't like that style, but fine. You ask for budget and they tell you the budget. I'm just going to make a random figure because I'm guessing as a lot of South Africans are going to be watching this. I'm going to use rands. Let's just say he's on 1.2 million rand. 1.2 million rand for solutions architect 8 years ago. Fair enough. Now it's not such a good salary anymore. But because that person's been in there and maybe got the minimal increases that they've received, they haven't allotted for or budgeted for a 1.8 to 2 million rand salary. So they coming in saying, we want to pay 1.2. That's what we were paying. And I'm saying, you're not going to find that. So that's there's a massive gap between that when you speak to, and obviously coming from a recruiter that deals with these people on a day-to-day basis, you offer a market analysis or competitive analysis, say, this is what your competitors are paying, you need to match that, and send them backwards to go get the side-off budget. But besides that happens quite often. I think it's a really small market, and when they're looking for certain certifications, which depending on which organization you're working for, so like we'll work for a few companies that are outsourcing MSSP, and they want a pen tester with an OCP because the client, the end users ask for OCP. Great, don't get me wrong, OCP is great. OCE is even better. But the amount of people that have that
Minimal.
is minimal. So then you turn around and say, well, I hope you're going to be paying, 20 to 30% over, because that's the only way you're going to lure this person. And just know you are buying the person. It's not the case the person wants to come over to you. We are headhunting a person and luring them in with money. So it goes back to the other part is, once you have them, how do you retain them? Because someone else is going to be reaching out going, hey, we're also looking for this, and then offering another 20 to 30.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, you've seen a thousand of CVs. I mean, from around the world. I guess what are the common mistakes, the guys are either putting into their CV to not stand out, or they're not showing the attention that's required, or what are guys doing better than others from a marketing point of view?
Yeah, look, you go from pillar to post. You could go speak to people in the Middle East, they'll tell you differently to Americas. The common thing that everyone hears is, don't make your CV longer than two pages, right? I think everyone knows that by now. Everyone's heard it. Is it true? Is it not true? I honestly couldn't care less if someone sends their CV that's 6 pages or 1 page. I think the things that people are doing right versus doing wrong is showcasing their achievements and their accolades versus doing a lengthy duties and responsibilities. And I advise a lot. So, I've helped SDRs, junior people that have just entered the market, or SOC analyst level 1, create a really sexy CV. And when I say sexy, you don't put clip art or use Word, because that's the one way to get your CV thrown out. Do you need a picture? No, you don't. Do you need to put in your full details with your address? And some people be in cybersecurity, so we know this. I actually scream when I see an ID number. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? But you don't need to do any of those things. You can just have Sam Perry, Jeron, Van Delso's location, roughly location. You're going to have to tell your address. Cape Town, Joburg. What do you want to know? I'm in that area. Maybe mobile number, maybe email address, because that's kind of for the ATS side, depending if you're applying on LinkedIn or not. But what I normally advise people to do is focus on your achievements and accolades. That should be, depending on what you're typing or writing out your thing, your job, 80% of that underneath what your job is. So Jeron, founder of Coley, 80% should be all about my achievements. The 20% can be, I manage a team of 14 people, I do XYZ. Keep it short and brief.
Yeah.
Because when you're hiring a pen tester, what does a pen tester do? Everyone knows what unless you're doing just mobile or just infra, web, mobile, or infra, then state that. But otherwise, people know what you're doing. You don't need to tell them that you're doing ethical hacking or you are trying to break into this or trying to do that. Same thing as a recruiter. Everyone knows what a recruiter does. I don't need to tell you what I do. Maybe I can just outline my discipline, if that makes sense. So I think what I find a lot of the time happens, people waffle on because they feel they need to fill up the space. So they'll say like, I'm a salesperson for whatever vendor it is. Let's just say, first thing I see on my thing, Zero Fox. I'm a vendor. I sell Zero Fox. I cold call people XYZ. No one cares about that. If you say there, I've done 130% of quota year on
Yeah.
year, 2 presidents clubs, you know the person's a performer. It doesn't matter how they did it. You just know they get it done. So my advice, anyone listening to this podcast or watching, if you want to focus on your CV, how to make it super impactful, name, very short. You might want to do a little summary. I call it a bio. Just tell you it's a little bit personalized because otherwise it doesn't really showcase your story. I do add in certain things like I'm a father of 2. I think it's nice for people to know a little bit about you. I'm a big advocate of sports. I'm a big
Keep
sports
it
guy.
human.
Keep it human. It's just your bio. A lot of people write there, I'm a 20 plus years veteran in this and like I'm super amazing. Don't need to tell me that. I'm going to read on about that. And whoever's, if you apply directly or for recruiters, they should be selling you in the first place. But, stick to a little bit of personal. Tell them what you like, what you do on your hobbies. Some people used to put it at the bottom of their CV, hobbies and outside activities. Don't worry about that. Put up in your bio, move on to, and I hear this a lot, put in keywords because it helps the ATS. Bro, I've worked with so many ATSs, all of them are broken, so don't even worry about it. If your thing gets chucked out, it's not because of a keyword, I promise you that. It's because something else internally. So, name, short bio, get straight into the thick of things. Maybe if you want to do a highlight reel on top, just these are my top highlights throughout my whole career, 5 points. Something that's chewable for them to look at and go, if someone's got 3 times President's Club or #1 sales rep globally for massive company, you're going to want to read on. And then jump into your things and keep it short and sweet. I also say don't go any more than 10 years back. So if you worked at one company for 8 years, the other company for 2 years, you only should have 2 things there. Everything else is previous experience and keep it bullet point because it's not
Yeah.
relevant.
I got a CV the other day and the references were like stating back to just after high school and it's like 10 jobs. And I was like,
Do they even remember you? Like,
Yeah. And then, Jeron, like from AI is transforming cybersecurity. I mean, how's that transforming recruitment? I mean, I guess, a lot of people are using it to write their CVs and develop, this better looking approach.
yeah,
Is this something you're looking out for picking up quite quickly and quite easily?
I wouldn't say I'm a technophobe, but I was very reluctant on AI. I'm very open about it. I actually don't do any of my write-ups using AI because I didn't like the fact that it didn't sound like me. And I know there are prompts that you can type into ChatGPT and you can actually filter a whole bunch of your stuff in there and go, please write it in my yeah, I just didn't want to do that to be being lazy. But yeah, I think the way it's transforming for us anyhow in the recruitment space, it started off more so on the content side. So a lot of people would type in, content, and you want to obviously keep engaged with your market and your audience because our audience is our talent, right? So going on ChatGPT and finding out latest trends, finding out companies that are hiring, all the stuff and feeding it to the masses to look at, a very good part of it. I think it's attraction towards you. People follow you. It's your brand. Once again, social selling. The things that it's helping with recruitment itself, with the searching part and sourcing, LinkedIn's even, I don't know if many people know this, but LinkedIn actually has 2 sides. Like there's a dark side to LinkedIn. It's called LinkedIn Recruiter, and you actually pay for it. It's an
Mhm.
exorbitant amount of money, just by the way. Don't want to give away. By the way, if LinkedIn you're watching, please give me a discount. But, you pay for this and it's kind of like this massive platform that actually showcases all the people that are open to work because obviously people can it's not the green banner. You can actually put your open to work and showcases who's available, who's willing to chat and engage. Now it's also had an AI. Back in the day, it would just have nothing besides your search parameters. We call it a Boolean search. You type in your keywords or certain things that you took from the client when you were qualifying the role, and it would spit out a whole bunch of names. So it's really down to how good you are at using those words, right? And not being too specific, because a lot of people be over specific and you come up with 3 people worldwide. But like
Hmm.
coming up with this massive talent pool and being able to reach out to them to interact, that was never any AI there. The only AI that came into play was helping you create a template to write to them. So, hey, this is a job opportunity, and it just saves you a little bit of time. Don't get me wrong, great. I think it's good. I think most of my team use it. I don't like to use that because I like to personalize mine. Okay. However, what I am starting to use, the AI now has moved over to the keywords. So on that side, you didn't have to type in, for example, I would just type in sales engineer and then go at the bottom and go EDR. If I didn't want EDR, SEAM or SOAR tools, like what I want these guys to have experience in. You can now just type in a prompt that says, I'm looking for sales engineers in South Africa, predominantly based in South Africa, open to Cape Town. Ideally, I want them to come from SEAM or SOAR background. If we're looking at SEAM or SOAR, maybe SEAM, Splunk would be the biggest, Exabeam, Securonics, and I'll go down the list. And you feed this all into it. Can you come up with alternatives? And you'll be surprised at how fucking accurate this is. It comes up with companies that I didn't even know about.
Hmm.
And it spits these up. And when I do a search like D3, I'm like, fuck, these guys are playing in the space. I didn't even. So now I've got a new company that I can also approach. But AI is definitely transforming that side of it on a big time. And now you even have guys that are competing versus LinkedIn. I'll shout out to MetaView because I've used it a few times. It's an AI sourcing tool. Same thing. You do a prompt and it spits out people. Just, it's super quick. Don't want to give, I don't know who's going to be listening to that. I don't want to give away all the tricks because then my clients will be like, oh, great, we don't have to use Jeron anymore. But yeah, it's definitely a big change for us to be adopting it and
Time
using.
saving,
It is time
much.
saving. Yeah. It's also helping with a lot of the admin tasks that
Hmm.
us recruiters absolutely hate. The biggest thing for me, and I've said this to my team, if AI can replace all the things that we do on the side, so we have more time to speak to people, then that's the best thing ever. Because our job is to speak to the most amount of people possible so that we can identify the best solution, which is our product as a human, to our clients. Because a lot of the times recruiters are super, super busy. And I've told this to many, many clients. They send a message out to 100 people. They only speak to 15 that reply to them. Out of the 15, they choose 5. They send the 5. The client looks at it, either goes great talent or bad talent or hires one of the talents. And I normally say, but was that the best? Because you never got to speak to the other 75 people, or the agency didn't get to speak to the other 75 people. So there could be 4 or 5 other people that are better suited. You just didn't have a chance to see them. And that's where AI, I think, helps us, is because we have the chance to have more time to speak to these people. I hope I'm making sense.
Listen, I totally agree. I think AI is there to assist us, and like you
Absolutely.
said, save time. I'd rather use AI to cut time to do something and have more time to spend, working on something else, which is so key. Jaron, just taking a look at, I guess maybe a piece of advice, if a company's struggling to keep their talent, or also maybe a professional who's trying to break into the field, what would it be?
Let's start with the first one. So you said how for the company to struggle to find or keep the talent.
Find or keep. I mean, I think that's
Social selling. 100% social selling. So a lot of people are doing this. You've got LinkedIn influencers now, for goodness sake. I think the social selling part is probably the biggest thing for you to keep and attract talent organically. So, you would have noticed people doing SKO posts when they go away and they, drink a lot and party a lot, and that's great. And they have pictures. That is social selling. They've been doing it for a while. But going a
yeah.
little bit further, you know, start doing videos of people on the desk. Start doing videos, obviously not showcasing the PC, but someone just typing. If it's, a guy in a sock, you don't want to showcase what they're doing, but start doing little videos or talking to people in the organization from junior to senior and asking them to share stories. It doesn't have to be work related. Just start sharing things about people in your organization, preferably people that are happy and smiling, not people who are miserable and sitting in the corner rocking themselves back and forward. That's not going to get you more talent. Social selling is such a big thing. And the more people start seeing it, the more people talk about it, the more people interact. If I'm going on a post, really good company, 3 comments, 2 likes. Okay. Small company, unknown, thousands, viral. I'm interested. Why? What's happened? And I'm going to research them. So we need to take, and it's such a far cry from my days. Like, I'm not really an Instagram guy, right? I'm not any of this social. Like, my social is LinkedIn. That's my social. But I'm big on that. And I know that is my market. So I'm social selling all the time. Talking about professional, aspiring to get into cyber, I've said the same thing over and over. And maybe you can also give advice because you are probably the experts at this. For me, the basics, you always need to have the basics. So be it you go through one of these CompTIA or get the security or the A plus, something
Mm,
very basic just to say that you've got I call it the golden ticket, the entry ticket into the world. On the cyber side, probably if you want to go technical, if you want to be part of a SOC or you enjoy breaking things, the CH is probably the most basic, the ethical hacking, certified ethical hacking, CH. A basic one for the fundamentals and the frameworks and everything else, CISSP is a good one.
mm,
Obviously this does cost money, so I do understand some people go like, I can't pay that. Do some online courses, man. There's some free ones. I think more so for anything, it's not really about how many certifications and what you have. If you're trying to enter the market and you can showcase that you're studying and learning and you're passionate about it, that is automatically going to bode so much better for you when you're speaking to a professional because they'll be like, this person's taking it out of their own to do this. And we
mm.
want to hire people that are passionate about this going backwards, who's going to believe in the mission, believe in the. It's not just a job. They're like passionate about that. For me, if you want to get in and you want to break into the field, show that you're passionate, start sharing contacts. So here's the other thing that I talked about, social selling. Start social selling yourself, sharing links about trends or stuff that you've, and don't just share for the sake of sharing, posting it and actually commenting and saying, oh my gosh, read this. This is why I enjoyed it. This is what I learned from this. And if you're doing that constantly, people are going to notice you. You'll be surprised how many people notice and people comment. And then a few comments and likes, you can kind of see the person. Maybe they even connect with you. You can ask the person, hey, do you have a job for me? That's for me the best way is constantly social sell and create yourself a brand.
Yeah. Listen, I mean, I've got a couple young candidates who are always talking about coming into our industry. They either been in a different industry and they're talking
Yeah.
about cyber, and everyone's always like, oh, they want to be a pen tester. And I'm like,
Yeah. No, you don't.
you're either a pen tester or you're a pen tester. And the problem is, I can guide you in looking at certifications, but generally what I look at is, yeah, it is generally those open courses, those free courses that you can get your hands on and go understand it. And then come back to me after looking at, maybe 5 or 6 different types of domains in cyber. Tell me what interests you after that, because I always thought being a pen tester was my key and my sort of aim to get into cyber. I'm not a great pen tester. I can do it,
Yeah.
but I'm not an expert, and I never will be. And that's why there are people who are meant to be pen testers.
I think, the thing is, it's also what people don't understand what cybersecurity and how vast it is. And most people, a pen tester or ethical hacker, they would have watched war games, depending on their age, right? I'm giving away my age, but they would have watched war games or Swordfish or Mr. Robot. That's one of yeah, and they'll be like, "Oh, this is so cool. This is what I want to do, cybersecurity." And I get it. It does sound cool. It's probably not as cool as you think when you're in it because you see a very dark side when you lift up in that curtain, right? And you're like, God damn, this is hectic. But you know, if I'm gonna use this scenario, do it, paint an analogy. If I was breaking into the industry and I had a job already and I was working, I was getting paid. Number one, tinker, do stuff on the weekends, learn as much as you can, social sell. I would post a whole bunch of stuff. This is what I'm very interested in. Your current company is not really going to monitor your LinkedIn and go, why are you posting this? I'm interested in it.
Mm.
I'm allowed to post what I want to post. If you keep posting and saying, hey, I'm trying to get into this industry, they're obviously going to clock on. But post and social sell and also go to conferences, go to events. There's a lot of free events, man. Go network, go walk to people, talk to people. I think B-Sides is a great one. I see B-Sides is
Yeah.
happening, and whoever's watching this one, I can link up with some of the organizers that side. But there's so many different conferences that you can go to, just step into, network and speak. That's the one way to get your name out there and be able to be offered an opportunity. If you're not in a role, you see you're a graduate and you're looking, maybe living at home, living off a tuition or whatever you're living off, and you're not working and you're applying, for me, silly to wait and for 4, 5, 6 months and not doing anything whilst applying. Rather approach these companies, say, I'll come to work for you for 2 weeks for free.
Mm.
I just want to learn.
That's what I did.
Yeah.
I had all the certifications and all that, and I landed up working for an organization for 6 months until they started paying me, and it was
Yeah,
all
okay,
about
that's
the
long,
experience.
Simon, but do you know what? But it showed your passion. It also showed you weren't there for the money, you were there for the learning. And then
Yeah,
once your learning curve, they were like, okay, wait a minute, this guy's an asset. You could leave, and they're like, shit,
mm,
we want to keep this guy, and they'll pay you.
yeah,
It's I think that today, and I don't want to say kids because my wife, when I always say kids, she's like, "You're not that old, Jeron." Um, but yeah, if you want to break into the industry, go do that. Go out there, speak to people, network, and offer
mm,
yourself and say, "Look, I'll work for free 2 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever you need." It's more about like an internship. Like I want to learn, and if you're there pulling your own, showcasing your skills, I can guarantee you they'll turn around and say, "Hey, man, would you want to work here?" And
I like it. I do
yeah, do
like it.
that enough.
Jaron, finally, I guess from a personal side of things, I know we touched on collaboration, but I know on our previous call when we were talking about having this podcast, you spoke about, I guess, your initiative or your program called Jenny.
Yeah.
Do you want to maybe touch on that? Who is Jenny? Where to come from along those lines?
Yeah, thanks, man. That's Jenny back there. My mom unfortunately passed away a couple of years ago, kind of the inspiration behind creating this group. But essentially, we used her name. So hope you're okay with that, mom. But we decided to kind of create this group of entrepreneurs that kind of link up together and enable us to take on bigger clients and service clients in a better manner because I'm a small business owner. I've got 5 employees. We're going to have a sixth employee. I used to work with big names. I can't service big accounts. So if they come to me with 100 roles, we can't do that. Simple as. However, as mentioned, I think in the beginning of this call, I've got some people that worked with me or worked for me that have branched out and started their own agencies. Some of them are bigger than I am. Some of them are smaller. But there's about 8 of us that joined, and there's a few people knocking on the door that's also asking to come join Jenny. And we've kind of collaborated to join forces. Number one, offer better services to their customers, a little bit more global footprint, just in cyber. So some of my customers are in cyber, but they'll ask for a legal person or commercial ops person or executive assistant. I don't do that shit. Finance as well, don't do that. Um, this is why I brought these guys on, because we can still give great level service to the company and it's still kind of part of the group. So I'm a chairman, if you want to call it that. The cool thing about being part of Jenny is we also do training and support. So, it's a lot more than just, we're sharing leads and passing jobs over. We're training each other, we're supporting each other. I'm learning from them, they're learning from me. We just one big, I want to say, recruitment family, but we kind of did the mother of recruitment groups because obviously she was my biggest cheerleader.
I love that. Very
Yeah,
cool.
and no, I appreciate you asking about it. And we're evolving even further. We've actually got 2 clientele that have asked us to try and sell their product, which is bizarre, to be fair. But recruiters are good salespeople, I've been told. So I don't think we're ever going to come up against you. I don't ever want to come up against you. You'll beat me. But a few clients have asked, like, it's HR reward type of program things. They're like, can you sell this out on your book? Because we obviously connected to chief HR revenue officers and stuff like that. So we're doing that on the side. There's a few other things that are boiling over, but yeah, it's very exciting.
Jaron, thanks for an incredible discussion and for keeping it real with us today. This is Resilience Unplugged, your space for honest voices, bold ideas, and people driving cyber forward across Africa and beyond. Stay curious, stay connected, stay resilient.